Hello, sorry about that. My name is Toby Ajimoko, and I'm the recording secretary of the Rankin Mon Valley Pittsburgh chapter of NCNW. We have a lot of great panelists today, and I wanted to welcome everybody. But today is special because this is the first live stream we have for the year 2021 in Black History Month. And I also wanted to shout out a very dear member of our NCNW chapter who recently passed, Miss Schnell. Ms. Schnell was actually the member who kind of came up with this initiative, but unfortunately she passed before she could see it. But I wanted to kind of give everyone a bit of background on Ms. Schnell. So Miss Schnell Simmons was a pioneer and glass ceiling breaker in Pittsburgh, especially, where she was the first African-American silver buyer for Joseph Horn Cook, a company of Pittsburgh International, and executive owner of a telephone service in McKeesport. She was also an owner of Hotel Clarington in Clarington, Pennsylvania, and featured in Talk magazine as one of Pittsburgh's most successful African-American leaders. And she's had numerous community health awareness programs award for over the last 50 years. Her memberships include the National Council of Negro Women, the NAACP, and lifetime member and former president of the McKeesport branch of the NAACP. She definitely made her mark in the community by her brilliant and vivacious smile, her generosity, her kindness, her knowledge, her wisdom. And this was something she shared with everyone. And I just know if she was here, she would encourage us to keep moving towards our goals and create a goal to go after. She'll be missed by her friends, her family, and her chapter, but her impact still remains. I just wanted to open the floor to anybody who had any anecdotes or stories that they had about Miss Schnell. I know she was very vivacious and she was an amazing person who always spoke her mind and encouraged everyone else to speak their minds in a very respectful manner. So if anybody has any anecdotes about how she's helped them or about how she's impacted their life, I would love to hear it.
Well, I was blessed to know Chanel for most of my life. We both grew up in McKeesport. And Chanel loved to tell the story because when she asked me to do this, she told me the story again. She loved to tell the story about how on Sunday mornings she would walk by my house to pick me up, to walk me to church, to Sunday school. We both attended the same Sunday school at that time at Zion Baptist Church in McKeesport, and she would come by every Sunday. And she said, "The one thing I remember about you is you always had on those white gloves." And I said, "Yes, because my mother always put them on me." But the fact is that I've known Chanel all that time, and everything you say about her is true. She will be sorely missed. She was an outspoken advocate for Blacks, for women, and she will be missed.
I did not know her personally, but once I saw her picture, I said, "Oh, I knew Chanel." She was such a driver and a go-getter. And the thing I guess I admired about the times I interacted with her was her courage, because she always stood up for what she believed was right. And that was through the early NAACP days for me and when I was politically active. And she had a rich life. I'm sorry she has passed and didn't get to see this, but she was truly a leader. She was truly a first.
And if Misty and Darlene are looking at this, then please, you have our deepest condolences.
Yes.
Your mother will be deeply missed.
And I agree with your sentiments. And thank you so much for sharing your stories and your feelings. And on that note, I just wanted to add that she does leave behind cherished memories and two daughters, Misty Durham of Pittsburgh, PA, and Darlene Durham of Texas. And she was married to the late Alfred J. Simmons for over 32 years. That's amazing. She also is the daughter of her surviving mother, Annie Elizabeth Hill, sister Eunice, both in Cleveland, Ohio, and sister of the late Cora Jean Newsom of Detroit. She leaves behind granddaughters, grandchildren, a bunch of friends, and a bunch of family. But the only thing we can do is just keep carrying on her memory and keep working to advance the rights of Black people, which is something she very much believed in. But with that said, I would love to jump into the panelists. This is very exciting. We have three extraordinary Black women. As you know, February is Black History Month and March is Women's History Month. And Ms. Schnell thought it was a great idea to kind of combine the two and invite trailblazing Black women so we can kind of pick your brains and ask you questions as young Black women like myself. Listen in. So first we have Miss Majori Mitchell, who was the owner of Meadow Lanes Bowling Center. She was the only Black person to have a bowling center in the Pittsburgh area. Then we have Miss Justice Cynthia Baldwin, who was part of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. And we also have Judge Doris Carson Williams, President and CEO of the African American Chamber of Commerce of Western Pennsylvania. I would say give us a round of applause, but we're online, so just gonna do the little shakers. So I just wanted to, yes, I just wanted to get right into it. I have a lot of questions, and I'm sure everybody else have a lot of questions as we have a dialogue, but I wanted this to be an open dialogue. And please feel free to jump in, interrupt me if you have anything to say. I want to really just have a lot of time to pick your brains. So the first question I'm going to kind of throw out to everybody on the panelists, anybody can answer, is can any one of you speak about what Black History Month means to you, especially when you've seen recent events and not so recent events, and how similar they were and how different, and just in comparison to where you've worked and the impact you've done?
Well, I'll share with you a comment I made to one of the local newspapers when they called me about Black History Month. And I told them I thought it was very honorable for them to highlight Black History Month, but it's something that we celebrate every day. Because every day there is a Black person that passes through your life or is part of your life that you can celebrate on what they do. I mean, I can say this because Justice Baldwin is a friend and I've known her for a long time, but I celebrate her. She was truly a trailblazer at a time when many women hadn't thought about it, or if they did, they didn't have that coordinated effort to make it happen. So Black History Month is a month that the majority community celebrates, but Blacks celebrate every day because we are somebody and we celebrate our successes.
Thank you.
I agree with Doris. I think that it was extremely important at the time that Carter Woodson had the idea for a celebration of Black history, because the majority community didn't know anything about all of the accomplishments, even though they were utilizing them. Many of them didn't know who had, the traffic light and everything with the peanut. They just didn't know. And so what he did was phenomenal at the time. At this time, it is extremely important. And I have been talking to everybody in education that I know, that we be integrated into the history of this nation. We shouldn't have to keep writing separate books to tell what we did, when if it wasn't for Blacks, we wouldn't even have a Washington, D.C. that looks like this.
That's right.
So we should be a part of the greater history, because we certainly are at the foundation of this country. So while I think it is very important, I do think that we need to integrate that history. As I tell people, I seem to be most popular in February and March. But the fact is that, like Doris say, we work the year long.
And that's very profound. I really want to, speaking on that, your experience as Black women in the workplace, as entrepreneurs, as trailblazers, I really want to jump into some of these more specific questions. So I'm going to start off with Justice Cynthia Baldwin, who, as I said before, is part of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. I just wanted to get your career in law and how you made your way to the Supreme Court, because that's no easy feat. And it's very, it's actually very interesting. I'm sure it's a very interesting story.
Well, first, I'm retired from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, retired in 2008. But let me talk a little bit about my life in the law, as you called it. Like many, many women, and especially many Black women, or many women of color, it wasn't a straight line. First, it was phenomenal that I was able to go to college. I know at the time that I went, people would say to my dad, I don't know why you're sending her to college. She'll just get married. So the fact that I went to college and I attended Penn State, and like most women at that time, I majored in education, but most women majored in education or in nursing, because those were the social studies, those were the professions that we were guided into. We know today we can do anything, but at that time, that's what happened. So I actually started out teaching English, and I taught English in high school, and then I went on after another degree and taught on the college level, and then I became an assistant dean of student affairs and continued to teach. And I did not go to law school until I had started work on my doctorate in English, because that's what I was going to do, be a college English professor.
Wow.
And so I was one of the older people in the class at the time that I went, because I was married and had 2 children. But
that's amazing.
I was motivated to do it. And thank God there were so many people around me that said, you can do it. And I did it. And the wonderful thing is I was motivated. So I actually was on law review, which is the honor for law school. And then after I graduated from law school, I took the steps that many people take. And to tell you the truth, the reason that I ran for judge, because I was such a political neophyte. I knew nothing about politics. I often tell people if I'd known all about politics, maybe I wouldn't have run, but it was meant to be. But the reason that I chose to run is because, and maybe you'll remember, I know Doris will, Doris Smith had been appointed to the Court of Common Pleas. And usually if you were appointed by the governor, she was appointed by Governor Thornburgh. And usually if you're appointed, you win. I mean, you have a step up because you've been on the bench.
Ah, gotcha.
And when she lost, many, many people were disappointed about not having an African-American woman on the bench. And that's when I was approached and people asked me if I would run. And so, you know, sometimes those disappointments lead us to do the things that we should be doing. And I think that's important to remember that you know, no, in spite of disappointment, you have to keep going.
I think that's amazing, especially because my sister, she's currently in Howard Law. She's studying to be a lawyer and she has a child. So when you said that, that was very impactful to me because that unconsciously made me think if you can do it, she can do it. And I
most
think
definitely.
For sure. And I think that your ending statement with disappointments can lead to open doors is very poignant for millennials and Generation Z as we kind of find and navigate our way through uncertain times, even as young people. So thank you so much. I'm going to move on to Judge Doris Carson Williams. So I'm not going to lie, I looked at your LinkedIn and I was very impressed. I saw a bunch of accolades, but I also saw that before being president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, you were on the board of directors for many companies, including Highmark and Riverlife Task Force. And that's no easy feat. And I wanted to kind of have you talk about your career, because when you're on the board of directors, I imagine that's the governing body of people who want to see the vision of a company and see change. So what inspired you to kind of go for those positions?
When I was growing up, the one thing I was always taught by my great-grandmother, Mrs. Anna Poindexter from Bell Vernon, she was such a volunteer and such a go-getter and was active in setting up the NAACP out in the Mon Valley. You have to be part of your community. And how you do that is you volunteer your time, you volunteer your services, but you get to meet people and engage with them. And that was part of the start for me growing up. So as I grew up, I became more engaged and involved in different projects and activities going on. I went away to school. And when I moved back to Pittsburgh, I once again got involved in Pittsburgh communities and worked with a number of different groups and organizations. What happens through your affiliations as you volunteer, you meet people, and it's about relationship building. I built a number of relationships, and out of those relationships, I was asked to serve. In serving, I didn't always take on the most glamorous positions. Sometimes I found myself getting on some of these different committees and organizations, and I was the secretary. But it was a wonderful experience because not only did I take the minutes, it helped me to learn about them. It helped me to learn about the people that I was engaged in. So as a result of that, when people reach out to you, you don't say yes to everything that someone asks you to do. But I was kind of picking and choosing the kind of activities I wanted to get involved in. Highmark is something that I really value, the relationship. I serve as the vice president for their foundation. And it is a way of trying to help ensure not only that African Americans can achieve business opportunities, but that the company supplies health care to people that look like me and have a greater commitment to that. And I think that that's on the rise. As a result of that, and I need to share with you, I am the past president of the Pennsylvania Court of Judicial Discipline.
Oh,
That's
wow.
where I served as judge. And what that means is I wasn't the Honorable Supreme Court Justice like Judge Baldwin. I served to represent judges and magistrates that got themselves in some binds or in trouble. And through serving on the court, I ended up being the president of the Court of Judicial Discipline. My work with the chamber is just a labor of love, I like to say. In many ways, you're volunteering, but you're really being of service. And in this case, I'm helping to serve people that look like me to gain access and opportunity in major corporations and organizations.
Perfect. I love what you said, especially as a secretary myself of the NCNW in this chapter. I very much enjoy what I do. And I do find that when you're in different positions, it's best to learn something from every single position. That way, when you're called to serve, you are do it flawlessly. And clearly identified that.
Can I share a quick story? I have to embarrass her. When Judge Baldwin ran for Common Pleas Court, she built an army. She tapped and reached out to, I think, everyone she knew, regardless of what their political affiliation was. She tried to garner support from everyone. One of the unique things that I had the opportunity to do was not only work in her campaign, but because I served on the other side, I was sending out a letter to get support for a judge that was serving on the federal court. And in the process of writing the letter, I asked them to please consider voting for Cynthia Baldwin for the Court of Common Pleas. I'd like to believe that it had an impact in helping her to get some crossover votes. But it was amazing watching Judge Baldwin's career blossom. And as she moved forward, she not only was in the forefront, but she took people with her. And that's the thing that we all, as Black women, have to be sensitive about. Yes, you can accomplish and be first, but make sure you got some seconds to come on behind you.
And thirds and fourths. And
thirds and fourths, yes.
And what Doris said is so true, because Doris showed a strength in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
When you did ask that, because she was in a different political party, and you can see what's happening today, people don't have the same strength of character.
That's true.
That Doris showed. You know, you look for the best person, and you try to do that. You need to have strength of character, and sometimes you speak up, and when you speak up or speak out, that doesn't mean you won't get into trouble.
For sure.
We get in good trouble.
That's right. It's good, just like John said, good trouble.
For sure. I love the ending of what you said. I think of a proverb. It's blessed is the second person that came along, because they showed that the first was not a mistake.
Yes.
Right.
So that's amazing. Miss Majori Mitchell, I know we can't see you, but I know we can hear you. And as someone who is an entrepreneur and a business owner, I know that the life of being an entrepreneur is very nebulous. It's not as straightforward as I would say traditional paths, like being a doctor or a lawyer or a professor. Can you speak about the differences you see now, as like when you see or mentor entrepreneurs now, especially Black women entrepreneurs, versus when you started out as a business owner?
I don't think there's too much difference. When I started out as a business owner, I came from a job on which I was the first Black female hired.
Oh, wow.
And I was the first Black female hired for Nabisco in 1955.
Oh.
And I worked for Nabisco for 36 years. And during those 36 years, the difference that from when I was hired until I left, there was a big difference because people have to get to know you as a Black person before they can identify Black and white. After Nabisco, I went into management at the Meadow Lanes, the bowling center, and the same differences that you have in business, you have in your workplace. It's something that you have to, it takes perseverance, it takes everything in order for you to be able to deal with all the different situations between Black and white, minorities, whatever.
And can you give advice about advice to younger Black women who want to start a business or who are looking to take over a business?
Yes, you have to have a good foundation. You have to have the finances. You have to have.
I know that's right.
That's the most important. You have to have a good work staff. You have it takes passion. You have to and the passion, more than the passion. You have to be willing to endure the ups and downs that are going to occur.
The other advice is they need to go talk to Marjorie Mitchell.
That's right.
It is important to go and to sit at the feet of the elders.
Exactly.
To learn how it was done and to build on it. Because when people come to me and they say, and it makes me feel good, but they'll say, Justice Baldwin, I want to be like you. I said, oh, no. You're going further.
That's
much further. Because that's what we want to see. And I think it's so important to have a woman entrepreneur of color that you can go and talk to and say, how did I have some questions. How did you actually get started? Tell me, some of the things I need to do.
And
it is so important to do that.
That's very
and as the head of the African American Chamber, I admire what Marjorie is doing because I have all these small business owners and I'm listening to her, and there's a lot of details that she's left out that she could add because as a business owner, she would go in every day. She's chief bottle washer, she's the leader, she's the teacher, she's all of that, and she's the motivator. And to have sustained her business as she did is really to be applauded.
That's very true. And I think it's important as Black women to have somebody who looks like us that we can go to. Because in the space of entrepreneurship, in the space of being a justice, being a judge, a lot of people, the reality of it is a lot of people may not want to give out the roadmap to how they got there. And that is a trend that I think a lot of people have seen, but you have to kind of know who to go to. And the one thing I love about being a Black woman is that if I see a Black woman down the street and she's doing what I want to do, I say, hey, I want to do what you do. And she's like, come on aboard, I'll teach you. So that's the one thing, that's the power that Black women have, the power of bringing up someone. And into that, I'm going to segue into my next question that goes to all three of you. Anyone can answer. All three of you have touched on going to your elders, each one teach one, reaching or pulling up as you climb. How have you all sort of did that in your career? And can you speak to the importance of keeping the door open so that other Black women can come through? And not just Black women, Black people in general.
I'm glad you said and in general. As Cynthia knows, one of my dear mentors, not only from politics, but for business, and then as I was opening the African American Chamber of Commerce, was the late Wendell Freeland. He was a well-known Black attorney in town. But what a wealth of information he would have. And I remember going over to his office sometime after work, and you just sit there and listen. There were a number of women, Black women, that I could go to and just ask questions. One of the things that I see happening now that wasn't as prevalent before is people are willing to share more information. You had to go to the elders before, when I was coming up in business and in the movement, to get the kind of insight and input you wanted, because those on your level oftentimes wouldn't do that. It's happening more now. And I'm so grateful. And I think about, the whole Black Lives Matter movement. It's about sharing. It's about caring. And Black women are sharing more.
Yeah.
And we have to remember that we're always being watched.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, we're always being watched. We are being watched by each other, and we are being watched by people who are not of color. And when Doris started to talk about, having mentors, leave yourself open for mentors broadly.
Of any color, any race.
For Black women,
exactly.
For Black men, for white women, for white men. When I left the bench, I was privileged to serve on the board of directors of Coppers. And I was the first Black director to serve and the first woman director to serve.
Wow.
And the reason I was asked to serve is because a white man saw how I was president of the board at Penn State, chair of the board of Penn State. And
she had courage.
And thought I could handle that. But my favorite saying, and I want to share it because I think that it's so important for people, when Doris said, not only for your success, but to inspire others. If you're just going for your success, then you're not doing your full job. And so my very favorite saying is, success is getting what you want. Happiness is wanting what you get. And experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. I have loads of experience. And all of that experience helped me to be both successful and happy. And I think that's an important thing to say to people, because you need to have a full life. And the fuller your life, the more you're willing to share it with others.
I can recall in my business career when I was director at Carnegie Museums, there were a couple of Black gentlemen, I might add, that would call me from time to time at the office and say, excuse me, Doris, this is what's going on. You need to stay away from that. And here's why. Or reach out to me and say, become a part of this initiative that's getting ready to happen, because it can benefit you. Those are very meaningful kinds of relationships that we all need to have and share with each other.
Speaking, I'm going to jump off of that. It sounds like you guys cultivated a lot of trust among, your allies, your mentors, and even among Black women. Can any three of you speak on how do you build trust, especially as a Black woman? I know when people first see us, Black women are often labeled as aggressive, or they are just not as respected as men, or just not as respected as white men or white women. Can you speak on how how you were able to get people to buy into you, to mentor you, people to become your allies?
You know, the late Elsie Hillman, who really helped to shape and mold my political career, she and I developed a relationship because she said, Doris, you always do what you say. If she asked me to do something, I would follow through. If I said I was going to be active in an activity, I would follow through. Your word is your bond.
Hmm.
And, you know, I can't stress that enough to entrepreneurs and to young people. If you do what you say you're going to do, it brings you great rewards. But what doesn't work is when you sign on for something and you're not there, or you say you will participate and you don't do it. It's your word. It's what helps to build your character. It's what helps to give you credibility. It's what makes people want to reach out and say, you know what? I think I'm going to call Cynthia Baldwin. And the reason I'm going to call her because she did XYZ and did it so well, I think it could benefit us. That's how things begin and start to happen for you.
You build trust, and I'm sure that Marjorie and Doris can speak to this and agree with this, by living the life. Because people watch you. It's not so much what's coming out of your mouth.
No.
It's the way you live your life.
Your behavior.
And the fact is, you have to have the integrity, the credibility. You have to, as Doris said, do what you say that you're going to do. And if you can't do something, you need to say that too. I often tell people we do more harm to each other by accepting positions that we can't do than by accepting positions we can. Because if you can't do it, you know, I keep a list of young Black women. And when I am asked to do something now, and believe me, my plate is full, I say, I'm sorry, I can't, but have you thought of blah, blah? Or blah, blah? And that way we get you into the pipeline. And it's very important to do that. Right now, I am vice chair of the Fulbright Association in Washington, D.C.
Right.
Oh, the scholarship.
I was a Fulbright scholar. And
I was a Gilman scholar. That's great. Yeah.
And so now what I'm doing every time that I have an opportunity to talk, I'm talking to younger women and men who are of color and say, you know, have you thought about a Fulbright? You want to travel abroad? You want to help people? You want to do those things? Think about it. Apply. Let me know if I can do anything to help. So that's what we have to do. We have to keep doing that and reaching out. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
No, I don't either. and always remember that can't never tried. My mother used to always tell me that.
I'm glad
Can't never tried.
Oh, God. Okay. The wordplay was like, it was fight with me for a second, but I think I understand. And I'm hoping our audience caught that too. Miss Majori, I kind of had a question about your bowling alley and about the significance of it in Pittsburgh. So a lot of times Black people conjugate in communities. Did you feel that becoming an owner and having a bowling alley, did that become a pillar of the community? Was that an avenue where you were able to help other Black people?
Yes. It was not only a pillar of the community, it was a safe haven, especially for the young adults.
Yes.
We did a lot for the children, keep them out of trouble.
Yes.
30 years, I said.
For years, we taught children how to bowl. The majority of the people that are bowling today are Meadow Lane projects,
Mm-hmm.
and they can let you tell. They can tell you what we did for them. Most of the young adults that never would have left Homewood, we took them on a field trip out of Pittsburgh every year.
Wow. And that's really important. That's
right.
very important to make sure children see outside of their home. They know
Right.
that experiences are out there, and that allows them to have the choice to say that I want to be this, I want to go here, I want to learn this. So that's that's impactful.
Not only that, we were examples for them to know how to act, know how to carry themselves, know how to be men and women. And to this day, I hear from children that came through our program that compliment me or Louise or Ted Page or Ray Jeter, the people that put time in with them, and thank us for what we did for them.
She just said the magic word.
What?
People call and tell her thank you.
Yes.
Thank you goes a long way.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Well, thank you. So, my next question is going out to everyone. It sounds like the pattern I'm hearing is that I worked for here. I was trying originally to get this degree, and then I somehow stumbled upon this opportunity, and that's how life just took its course. So can you speak to young Black women who kind of have a sort of tunnel vision? Right now, I'm 23 myself, and I know some of our listeners are probably on the younger side or not as into their career as some of you. So can you speak to how your other experiences kind of pushed you around? How kind of just letting the waves of time kind of make its course while still being intentional about making an impact?
You know, my career actually had a lot of twists and turns. My background is in data processing. You call it computer science now, but when I was coming out of college, it was called data processing. And as much as I love programming and being a systems analyst and doing all those wonderful things, I missed the people aspect. So what I did was branch out, and I wasn't afraid to try other things with that kind of a background. So when Control Data came calling and asked me if I would go into marketing with them with a data processing background, I said yes. So there I learned how to market data processing services with that background, and still had the tools and the instruments for how to do it. And it elevated me to the point where when a bank called, Dollar Bank called and asked me if I would come in and help them manage a conversion that they were doing in data processing, I said yes. So I took over one side of it and helped them manage their conversion from Honeywell to IBM. All the while, I was always active in small business development. So you know, it just elevated itself. And then I got a call about how would you like to run a business within a business, because I had been Governor Thornburg's policy chair for small business. I said, where? And they said, Carnegie Museums. And so then I took on the challenge and helped them build their business enterprises as they were adding the Science Center in the War Hall. And that all elevated me to the point where I invited a gentleman out to come talk to me. And he said, you're the person we need. We want you to set up our African American Chamber of Commerce, which I fell out laughing and said, no way will I do it. That was October 1998. They had 28 members. This is 2021. We are now the 9th largest chamber in the 10-county region. So, things happen and
For
you
sure.
build relationships and you get to meet people. And so one thing begots another.
And one thing that Doris has said is that, and I'd like to rephrase it this way: don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You know what you can do. You know what you've prepared yourself to do. But don't be afraid to step out of that comfort zone, because if you're afraid to take those risks, then sometimes you don't achieve your full goal. So you have to think, as long as you know that you're capable of doing something, then take that next step. Yeah. When I decided to go to law school, I can't tell you that there weren't nights that I woke up in the middle of the night and said, what in the world are you doing? You have a career here. You have a really good job. You're on a good path. You are going to be a tenured professor. What do you mean you want to go to law school? But I knew it was something that was inside me that I wanted to do and I could do, and I couldn't let that fear of failure hold me back. And the fact is that most people who are really successful, and I'm sure Doris can say this, CEOs have failed several times.
And you have to fail to succeed.
That's
sure.
right.
We don't
And
see the 100 failures, we see the one success. So
that's right. And so it's really important to really think about where it is you want to go and be flexible enough to change. If you see something you want to, I know a lot of people who are very sad in their careers because they were afraid to change. You can't be afraid to change because, as I said, happiness is wanting what you get.
for sure.
And look at what Marjorie did.
Right.
That's a wonderful example.
Exactly.
Well, look at Chanel.
Yeah, Miss Chanel.
Look at the evolution of her career.
Sure.
For sure. We actually have a caller on the line. I believe his name is James. So if we could hear from James, his question, you're on the line.
Yes, I was calling because, first of all, I'm enjoying the show, and I want to say congratulations to all the guests. And I just had a couple comments. I used to bowl at Meadow Lanes in Homewood, and I really enjoyed myself. I belonged to a couple leagues there, and the management was always nice, and I just enjoyed going there, being in a league and just having fun at Meadow Lanes. That was the place to go. Plus, they had indoor parking, and in the wintertime, that really came in handy. When you finished bowling, you could go to your car, and your car was nice and warm. And I just have one more thing to say. Marjorie was always at the bowling alley, and my son was bowling there, and he was an average bowler. And she talked to him and gave him some pointers, and he implemented a lot of those things that
She said, help me out. That's why I shot my 300.
It went off.
I think you're on mute.
That's what my mom does. She's my mentor. 50 years, Marge. I finally got it.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for your call. And thank you for showing the impact. It's honestly, you bring people up as you go up. So Miss Marjorie was talking about the impact she made, and literally we just saw an example. So I'm sure there are many people out there who are just saying thank you for the impact you've made. So I'd like to sort of wind down and ask all three of you lovely ladies, if you had to go back throughout your career, looking back at your career, at the twists and turns, would there be one, a defining moment where you kind of knew what you were doing. Or even if you didn't know what you were doing, you were saying to yourself, it doesn't matter, I'm going to see this through. And if there was anything you could go back and change. So two things, defining moments and anything you can go back and change.
Well, I don't know about Judge Baldwin and Marjorie, but there's several things I could change. But let me say this: when I left the field of data processing and took that position with Carnegie Museums, I understood marketing because I had learned from the best. I had learned how to market, and but I didn't really know what all to do. And sometimes you have to step out, as Cynthia said, on faith and be guided by those around you and be like a sponge, absorb as much information as you can. One of the things that I appreciated, I would always read and research. If I didn't know what it was, I would go and try and research it and then ask others about it. So if there's one thing I could change, I wished I had had someone like that when I first moved back to Pittsburgh that said, Doris, do this and this and this. But if I had done that, I wouldn't have had all the rich experiences that I've had. So you can always play fifth quarter and say, I wish I had done, but you have to cherish and celebrate where you are and be thankful. And I'm very grateful for the experiences that I've had.
I agree with Doris.
Go ahead, Marjorie.
I agree with Doris. I have no regrets for how we turned out. I'm thankful for all the friendships and for everything that I enjoyed. The only thing I wish that happened was financially we were still available.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I have no regrets.
Like Marjorie, although I have had obstacles and challenges in my life, I would not change a thing because they made me who I am today.
That's right.
And I think that's very important. And I have to say, I'm a person of faith. So, I believe that God gives you the talents and he expects to see what you can do with them. The other thing that I do realize is that you can't do it all by yourself.
That's right.
Somebody is always helping. You may not even know about it, but somebody is always helping you. And to the young women out there, I want to say, and I know Doris can speak to this, I am so blessed to have the husband that I have.
Yes.
Because my husband is very talented, a very talented scientist in his own right. But his ego is in the right place. He knows he's good at what he does. And he wants me to be the best I can be. He was always supportive of whatever I did, even as that political neophyte when I decided to run for judge and we knew nothing about politics. He was always supportive. And so I have to say that, people used to ask me to give talks on balancing, work-life balance. And I never knew why they asked me to give those talks because I'm not sure I ever learned how to balance.
Yeah.
But the fact is thank goodness I did have help along the way. And we have to remember that, you don't have to go it alone. Look for that help. And I just wanted to give a shout out to my husband of 53
I'm glad
years.
you said that, Cynthia, because for the past 43 years, Jim has been my partner. He's been my best friend. He's been there for me to cry on his shoulder as he lifts me up and tells me, dust yourself off, and go back and get it. And it doesn't have to be your spouse, even though that's what she and I are talking about. It could be your best friend.
That's right.
It could be your mother. It could be your sister. But you have to have that relationship. But you have to have faith and the courage to stand up for what you believe is right.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing. I actually do have one more quick question. We only have about 3 minutes left, but there's 3 panelists and there's 3 minutes left, so this should work. A lot of Black women are leveling up this year, and they are saying they want to read more books. If you could tell Black women what to read right now, can you tell me one of your favorite books that you've read recently or not recently, and if you would recommend that to Black women to read?
I'm reading Caste right now.
Are you? Good.
I'm reading Caste. I read her other book. I'm loving it, so I would recommend Caste.
Caste, and that talks about the caste system in India and compares it to.
Well, it's talking about the United States and how race is an element of caste that we don't look at it. We don't talk about caste, so it's fascinating.
Interesting.
You know, there's a number of books I've read, and without getting into Black artists, the one book I would encourage all young women to read is The Distributed Mind.
Just write that. Write that.
And because I'm telling you that, I can't remember the author now. But that book served as a reference for me, because how many times do we have to multitask? We start off our day doing one thing and then you're doing something else, or you got 5 Zoom calls and all these other things going off. Read The Distributed Mind.
She carried that presidency.
I recommend anything by Michelle or Barack Obama.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And although it's not a book, everybody should read Amanda Gorman's poem.
Oh,
Yes.
Everybody should go back and read it and take it in.
Is that the inauguration poem?
Yes.
Yes.
Is amazing.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
She has a beautiful picture on Time Magazine this week.
Yes, and she's on the cover of Time Magazine.
Isn't it
so thank
wonderful?
you so much for your recommendations. It's 6:58, so we're gonna wrap it up. But I just wanted to give another shout out to Miss Schnell. May she rest in peace. And we are sending our thoughts and prayers to her family. And without her, this would not have been possible. So thank you all for participating as panelists. Thank you for giving us your wisdom, your intellect, your advice. This has been so worthwhile, and I know I took a lot, and I'm sure our audience took just as much too.
Thank you for inviting me and for asking me to be with these 2 giants, Marjorie, because I grew up in Homewood Brush and bowled there. And Cynthia's always been my hero. So I'm just honored to have been a part of this.
Thank you.
And I am honored to have been here, and thank you, NCNW, for doing what you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up. I'm wishing everybody a great, safe night. Stay indoors, wear your mask, and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.